want to talk a little bit about who LSU just went and got. Okay. So Brian Kelly left what was once considered a Yankees job, a job you have to be fired from to leave to accept a head coaching position at LSU. In doing so, Kelly becomes the second coach in as many days to perform that feat. When USC coach Lincoln Riley told the media Saturday night that he wasn't going to be the next head coach at LSU, Kelly must have smirked. What does this mean, though, for LSU? Well, Kelly knows that what I wrote in last month's Fox Sports column is true. LSU is the best college football head coaching job in the country. And I wrote, quote, "It's easier to put together a list of coaches who would immediately say no, and that list begins and ends with Nick Saban, who saw the rock at Baton Rouge and polished it into a diamond capable of cutting down any team in college football. Everyone else form an orderly line because we all know you want to crack at this gig." Some of y'all mocked me for this, claiming I overstated the power of LSU's recruiting footprint, pocketbook, and allure. Then Kelly turned around and accepted the position while he was the head coach of a Notre Dame team that could still make the college football playoff this season, turning his back on an 11-win season and a decade of sustained excellence in South Bend in what is the weirdest fit in college football history. Your Honor, the defense rests. After stopping a mud hole in Stanford and walking it dry en route to an 11-win regular season, Kelly said, quote, "We've got one of the 4 best teams in my mind in the country without question, and we're ready to prove it," end quote. Then he told those ND players to show up for a 7 a.m. meeting to talk through what they learned on Twitter the night before via text message. Tough scene. By the way, I hope every last one of y'all ND players skipped that meeting. My goodness. What does it mean, though, for Notre Dame and Oklahoma? Kelly's departure from the biggest brand in the sport is also an example of the harbinger I wrote about when Riley accepted the USC job after putting together a 55-10 record, winning multiple conference titles, putting multiple Heisman winners on the podium, and making 3 college football playoff appearances. If Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley are exchanging notes, they probably need to stop because y'all are winless in the college football playoff between you. It can happen to your school is what I'm saying, and it's likely to happen to your school. As much as we'd love to believe coaches lose sleep over their decisions to leave blue blood programs, Riley told media about his USC decision on Monday that he made the decision to exit Oklahoma off the strength of a Zoom call and a nap. I've said it twice in this show because I need that to land for you. His move so blindsided OU's brain trust that they held a media conference on Monday to assure fans that they'd find the right person to replace Riley. I expect a similar discussion will be held at Indy post-haste. Now, the 2 teams that claim to have invented the phrase "play like a champion" today will have to find head coaches who can lead their players to championships. Even as a mass exodus is underway at OU and certainly will begin at ND. Moreover, OU and ND are essentially coming through the same hiring pool in a buyer's market. At the top of the list for both must be, as I said, Brent Venables, who's won national titles at each of his 2 stops as a position coach, coordinator at OU and Clemson. Both will also have zeroed in on rising star Marcus Freeman. ND has the inside track there, as Freeman is the defense coordinator for the Irish. However, the man who raised Freeman as a coordinator is at nearby Cincinnati, Luke Fickell. Fickell has long been linked to just two dream jobs. One of them is the place he played and stewarded and coordinated in Ohio State. And the other is Notre Dame. With Fickell having put together back-to-back undefeated regular season and appearing to be a conference title away from becoming the first coach to lead the program outside the Power 5 to the CFP, he's an attractive candidate for any big-time coaching gig, not just Notre Dame. But he's a fit in South Bend. He knows the territory. He's primarily recruited it, and he understands the wants, needs, and capabilities of the Fighting Irish program that wants to get back to recruiting the Midwest Catholic schools. If he were hired and could convince Freeman to stay on as defense coordinator, I would think Indy had hit the jackpot. I know Ohio State fans would like to see Freeman brought to the shoe to coordinate a defense that was embarrassed and run over by Michigan on Saturday, much like he once did. But I think Freeman is ready to be not just a head coach, but also head coach of a blue blood university. Oklahoma has a track record of hiring young coaches in their 30s who have no previous head coaching experience and spinning those hires into more gold than Rumpelstiltskin. Selfishly, I want to see Freeman, who is black, become a head coach because there just aren't that many in the sport that I love. And I've written as much, and I've talked about as much. But this year, it bears repeating. ND has had only one black head coach since it began playing college football in the 19th century. That came in 2002 when the Fighting Irish hired Tyrone Willingham, whose previous stop was Stanford. Former Cardinal coach Denny Green became the first black man to be the head coach at a Power 5 program at Northwestern in 1981. But since 1981, only 39 black men have been hired as head coaches to run Power 5 teams. That's 39 black head coaches in 40 years at the highest level of the sport with 65 jobs annually. That means fewer than 10% of all head coaching hires have been black men. Just 30 of the 65 Power 5 schools ever have hired a black head coach in a sport where more than half the population is black kids in a country where 7% of the population is black men. And there are even fewer with the kind of credibility and panache that Freeman could bring. This is a unique opportunity for both Notre Dame and Oklahoma, who have each hired just one black head coach in their history, to get a man who is young and smart and dynamic and has more than proven he deserves the chance to lead the kind of storied programs that Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly believe can be discarded for little more than their egos. I've watched all three major interviews and the entire Lincoln Riley press conference. I give Riley credit for saying the system was broken before he took advantage of it. All in the game, as they say. I believe he will flip USC into a national title contender. He's that good. However, I think coaches in general miss on what these college football teams mean to us, especially those who are walking into places where they weren't raised in the customs of the region, the city, the game day environments, and even more so for those we believe walked out on us for something fancier, prettier. When we've been down for you, when we do ride and do die with you. Most fans, especially the ones paying $50 to watch a pay-per-view beatdown or lurking on message boards, still aren't thinking of our programs as businesses. We're folks who graduated from, loans to, inherited season's tickets to see, what is in effect extended family. It's tough to do your job, head coach, when you know millions are invested in your every decision and, worse yet, critical of many of them. It's difficult to remember. It's a fanaticism maintained by a love, a power coaches in our sport are given. And when you leave the way that Riley did or Kelly did, it leaves a mark, a wound on millions as you make millions in a sport that is still played by our kids, our family, because that's who we are and all we have left, our intentional family. Thanks for watching this video, and remember, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any other videos on the #1 ranked show YouTube channel.